There's a prayer you've never learned. Prayer without words, searching for you right now. Strange unease, unsettling feeling in your heart. Sense that something bigger is trying to reach something you can't soul. Eckhart Tolle spent years studying this mystery. What he discovered will forever change how you divine. Because there is a moment, very specific moment. The universe whispers directly, and only when you're completely broken, only when all your defenses have crumbled. In that pulls apart, words fail, where even crying feels insufficient. It's precisely there that it found time. This unspoken prayer doesn't need to be spoken. It doesn't need to be thought. It simply happens, as if the universe itself breathes through your despair. Eckhart discovered this during his own profound transformation. At 29, he was on the brink of suicide, completely consumed by depression. He'd spent months waking up with a profound anguish, so deep he couldn't even name it. The weight of existence had become unbearable. That night, he was lying in his small London apartment. The walls seemed to be closing in. His thoughts were spinning in destructive cycles for hours. And then, at the height of his despair, something inside him said, "I can't stand living with myself anymore." But in that precise moment, a question emerged from nowhere. A question that didn't come from his tortured mind, but from a much deeper place. Wait, I can't live with myself? Then who are these two entities? Who is this I, and who is this myself? In that question, in that pure questioning, something impossible happened. He didn't pray. He didn't ask for help. He didn't utter a single word. But something inside him whispered. And what it whispered you simply, you are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes the thoughts. And what it said was simply drank. Changed everything. Want to know what it was? Of course you do. Because you recognize this story, don't you? You've lived something similar. Perhaps you felt this mysterious presence in your darkest moments. But first, you need to understand a truth that nobody tells you about prayer. True prayer isn't you talking to God. It's the universe speaking through you. And it only happens when you finally stop trying to control everything. Think for a moment. How many times have you tried to pray the right way? How many times have you repeated empty words, hoping that some miracle would descend from heaven? And that's because you were doing it all backward. We're trying to reach the sacred, but sacred was the unspoken prayer works like lightning. It doesn't descend from the sky. It rises from the earth, from your broken heart, from your shattered soul, from your mind that finally surrendered. When it rises, something up above answers. Eckhart calls this the power of now. Deeper secret behind that expression. A secret he whispers only to those who are truly ready to hear. Now isn't just a moment in time. Now is a door that opens only when you are completely vulnerable, completely present, completely empty. Empty of expectations, empty of requests, empty even of hope. It's in that emptiness that it lives. Prayer that needs no word. Felt it, I'm sure. Strange moment when you were lost in pain. Suddenly, inexplicable peace enveloped you. Peace that made no sense. A peace that came from nowhere. Or that time when you were desperate for an answer. And when you finally stopped looking, the answer appeared. Not as a thought, not as a voice, but as pure knowing. As if you always knew, but had forgotten. That wasn't coincidence. That was the unspoken prayer working through you. Here's what strikes me most about Eckhart's discovery. He realized there are specific signs when this prayer is trying to find you. First sign is sacred unease. That feeling that your current life is no longer enough. Something bigger is calling you, but don't know what it is. Second sign is the breakdown of old ways of seeking meaning. The things that used to give you purpose now seem empty. Answers that once satisfied you now sound like echoes. Third sign, this is the most powerful. You begin to feel a strange familiarity with the unknown, as if you're remembering something you never learned. Feeling these signs right now? If something inside you is whispering, "Yes, I recognize this," then it's no accident that you're hearing these words. The unspoken prayer has found you. It has a very specific message for you. But to receive that message, you need to understand how it works. You need to know its most intimate secrets. You need to know why it chooses certain people at certain times. Eckhart discovered there's a pattern that repeats itself in all the great spiritual transformations in history. A pattern he calls the death of the false self. Before the unspoken prayer can be born within you, something needs to die. Not physically, of course, but energetically, spiritually. Your old ways of understanding who you are need to dissolve. Your old ways of seeking security need to collapse. Your old strategies for controlling life need to fail completely. That's why the unspoken prayer usually appears in moments of great, not because God likes to see you suffer, because it's only in those moments that you finally stop resisting what has been trying to be born within you for a long time. Think about your own life. Think about the moments that most transformed you. Weren't they the happy moments? Weren't they the achievements or successes? They were the losses. They were the falls. They were the moments when you looked in the mirror and no longer recognized the person that. It was in those moments that something new began to whisper within you. Eckhart experienced this in an extreme way. He says that on that night, at 29, when he was on the brink of the abyss, something inside him said, "I can no longer live with myself." Then a question arose from nowhere. If I can't live with myself, who is this I that can't live with myself? That question that opened the door wasn't an answer. It was a question. Question arose from a place he didn't even know existed within him. This is the first characteristic of the unspoken prayer. It doesn't come as an affirmation. It's a question that dissolves. Who am I really when I take off all the masks? What remains when everything I think I need disappears? Who is observing my thoughts? These aren't questions you ask with your mind. They are questions that emerge from your deepest being. Questions that already carry within them the vibration of the answer. When you allow these questions to inhabit you, stop trying to answer them and simply let them exist within you. Something miraculous happens. You begin to realize there's a space within you that has never been touched by suffering. A space that remains intact, no matter what happens in your life. Eckhart Tolle calls this space presence, but I prefer to call it the place where the unspoken prayer lives. It's a place of silence that is not emptiness. It's a place of stillness that pulses with life. It's a place where you finally find what you've always been searching for, without ever knowing what it was. And it's in this place that you discover the second characteristic of the unspoken prayer. It asks for nothing. It doesn't plead. It doesn't negotiate with the universe. It simply acknowledges. Acknowledges that you and the divine have always been one. That separation has always been an illusion. What you are seeking out there has always lived within. When this awareness awakens, something changes forever in your vibration. You no longer need to search for God because you realize God was never lost. You were lost from yourself, And the unspoken prayer is simply the way back home, to that part of you that never left, to that essence that remained pure and untouched throughout all the years of searching and despair. But there's still much more to discover about how this prayer works in practice, how to recognize when it's trying to emerge within you, how to create the conditions for it to manifest more clearly. And especially, there's a secret that Eckhart Tolle only revealed to a few close students. A secret about what happens when you finally learn to live in this state of constant prayer. Because the unspoken prayer isn't something that happens only in special moments. It can become your way of being, your spiritual breath, your natural frequency. And when that happens, when you learn to live from this sacred place within you, your entire life transforms into a silent miracle. But to reach that point, you need to know the deepest secrets. You need to understand not only what the unspoken prayer is, but how it wants to express itself specifically through your unique life. Because each person has a different spiritual signature, and the unspoken prayer manifests in a completely unique way in each soul. Yours will be different from mine. Yours will carry the specific codes of your journey, your challenges, your unique gifts. And discovering that signature, learning to read those codes, that's where the real magic happens. Eckhart Tolle told me something in a conversation that changed my understanding forever. He said, "The unspoken prayer isn't something you do. It's something you allow to happen through you." Then, he revealed the secret that few know. There are 3 layers of depth to this prayer. The first layer is what most experience, those rare moments of deep connection. The second layer is when you learn to access this state consciously. But the third layer is when you become the prayer itself. You don't pray anymore. You are the prayer. But how exactly does this happen? How do you make this transition? Someone who occasionally feels the sacred, someone who lives in constant communion with it. The answer lies in your breath, not in the physical breath, in the breath of the soul. Every time you inhale, you're receiving not just oxygen, you're receiving the pure presence of the universe. This is the unspoken prayer in its simplest form. This constant exchange between receiving and giving, between being nourished and nourishing. But here's what most people don't realize. This spiritual breath is already happening within you, right now. It always has been. You just never paid attention to it. It's as if you've lived beside a river of crystal clear water your whole life, dying of thirst because you never looked down. So how do you learn to perceive this breath of the soul? Eckhart Tolle developed a very specific technique, the technique he calls deep body listening. It's different from any meditation you've ever experienced. It's not about controlling your breath or repeating mantras. It's about discovering what's already happening. Close your eyes for a moment, just for a few seconds. First, feel your body. Don't think about it. Feel it. Feel the weight of your arms, the temperature of your skin, the sensation of your feet touching the ground. Remain here for a few moments until you are truly feeling, not thinking. Now go deeper. Feel the sensation of being alive, not the thoughts about being alive. The pure, raw sensation of existing, as if there were a subtle energy running through your body, a vitality that doesn't depend on your thoughts to exist. Deeper still, feel the space between your thoughts, that silence that exists even when your mind is agitated. It's as if there's an ocean of stillness behind the mental storm. You don't need to stop the thoughts. Just acknowledge the space in which they appear and disappear. Deep within that space, something is breathing, not with air, but with presence. Inhaling the totality of existence, exhaling pure peace. It's there, right there. The unspoken prayer is whispering. It doesn't speak words, it speaks presence. It says, I am. All is well, not as a concept, as living reality. And when you learn to inhabit this place, well, when you learn to breathe from this presence, your entire life reorganizes around it. Your priorities shift. Your worries dissolve. Your relationships deepen. Your work becomes sacred. Your challenges transform into opportunities for growth. Not because you changed externally, but because you remembered who you always were internally. This is your spiritual signature, the unique way presence wants to express itself through your specific life. It's as if each soul arrives with a specific sacred code, a unique way of radiating the divine into the world. For some, it expresses itself through pure creativity. These individuals become direct channels of inspiration. They create not to impress or gain recognition, but because creation flows through them like a natural force. They might be artists, writers, musicians, inventors, chefs, or anyone who brings something new into existence through their hands. For others, it expresses itself through active compassion. They become natural healers of the world's wounds. Not necessarily professional doctors or therapists, but people who carry an innate ability to alleviate suffering, wherever they are. Their very presence is medicinal. A single word from them can heal decades of pain in someone. Still others, it expresses itself through lived wisdom. They become beacons of clarity in confusing times. They're the people everyone turns to when they need genuine advice. Not because they've memorized a lot of information, but because they can see through superficial illusions, straight to the heart of the matter. Some radiate infectious joy. Others emanate profound peace. Some are catalysts for transformation. Others are anchors of stability. And for you, how does this unspoken prayer, what is your specific sacred gift to the world? The answer is already whispering within you. It always has been. You just need to learn to listen with your heart instead of your mind. There's something even deeper I need to share. Something Eckhart Tolle only revealed after decades of teaching. He discovered that the unspoken prayer isn't just personal, it's collective. It's as if there's a specific frequency of consciousness. And when you tune into that frequency, you automatically connect with everyone else who's also on it. When you awaken to this presence within yourself, you automatically connect with everyone else who has also awakened. You form an invisible network of consciousness, a spiritual family that transcends time, space, religions, cultures, and even death itself. It's an extraordinary feeling. This happens for the first time. Suddenly, you no longer feel alone in the world. Even when you're physically alone, you sense this subtle connection with other souls who have found the same inner treasure that you have found. Sometimes, you can even feel when one of them is going through difficulties, even if they're thousands of miles away. And this network has a very specific purpose at this critical moment in human history. We are living in a time of great transformation, a time when humanity is to evolve or collapse. Old structures are crumbling. Systems based on fear and separation are failing. And a new consciousness is trying to be born through every crisis we face. and those who have discovered the unspoken prayer, those who have learned to live from presence. You are the catalysts of this planetary transformation. You are the midwives of a new era of consciousness, not through frantic action, not through preaching or evangelization, but through the simple radiation of who you are. When you live in a state of constant prayer, you become a transmitter. You transmit peace to agitated minds. You transmit hope to hopeless hearts. You transmit possibility to those who have lost faith. And you do this without even trying. It's automatic. It's natural. It's inevitable. This is the sacred responsibility of those who have found the unspoken prayer, or rather of those who have been found by it. You become a guardian of presence, a protector of possibility, a living reminder that there's something beyond the apparent chaos of the world. Here's the most beautiful part. You don't need to be perfect for this. You don't need to have solved all your problems. You don't need to be an enlightened saint. You just need to be real, authentically connected with this source of life within you. Because it's that authenticity that people recognize. It's that genuineness that touches hearts. It's that simplicity that opens the doors for others to also find their way back home. But perhaps you're wondering, how do I know if I'm truly living from this place? How do I know if the unspoken prayer has truly within me? There are very clear signs. Signs that Eckhart Tolle mapped out over decades of observation. The first sign is peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. You realize that there's a core of tranquility within you that remains stable even when everything around you is in chaos. It's different from forced calmness or emotional suppression. It's a natural serenity that doesn't need to be maintained through effort. You may be going through real difficulties. There's something within you that remains untouched by these difficulties. Second sign is natural. Don't force yourself to be kind. Kindness simply flows from you as a natural consequence of who you have become. You realize that when someone is being aggressive or unpleasant, it's because that person is suffering. And instead of reacting with irritation, you feel a genuine tenderness for them. It's not condescending pity, it's mutual recognition. The third sign is intuitive clarity. You know things without knowing how you know. You have insights that come from an intelligence deeper than the analytical mind. Sometimes you simply feel that you should call someone or take a different direction on the way home, or say no to an invitation. And later you discover that this intuition was perfectly aligned with what was needed. The fourth sign is spontaneous gratitude. You find yourself thanking for things you once considered obvious. The very ability to breathe becomes a miracle. The taste of water when you're thirsty. The feeling of waking up rested. The sunlight touching your skin. These simple experiences awaken a genuine reverence that comes from the heart, not the mind. And the fifth sign, this is the most powerful, is when you realize that there is no longer any separation between you and life. You're not living life as an actor playing a role. You are not facing life as an adversary to be conquered. You are life, living through the human form you inhabit. There's a total integration between being and doing, between essence and experience. When these signs begin to appear in your experience, you know that the unspoken prayer has found fertile ground within you. That's where the real adventure begins. Because now you're no longer seeking something outside of yourself. You're exploring the infinite depths of what you've discovered within yourself. Each day becomes an opportunity to go deeper. Each challenge becomes a chance to apply this presence more refinedly. Each relationship becomes a mirror reflecting yet undiscovered aspects of your divine nature. Slowly, very slowly, you realize your entire life has become a prayer. A living prayer. A prayer that walks, that works, that loves, that dreams. You no longer need to separate the sacred from the mundane, because you've discovered there was never a real separation. Everything was always sacred. You just couldn't see it. Now you see. And once you see, you can't unsee. This is the irreversibility of the unspoken prayer. Once it awakens within you, it becomes permanent. It may seem weaker or stronger at different times, but it will never completely go away. Because it's not something external you acquire, it's something internal you remember. Now that you know this secret, now that you understand how the unspoken prayer works, there's only one question that matters. What will you do with this information? Leave it as merely interesting knowledge in your mind, or will you allow it to completely transform the way you inhabit your life? Because I need to tell you something important. It's no accident these words reached you today. It's no coincidence you're hearing about the unspoken prayer at this precise moment on your journey. It found you. It chose you. It recognized in you someone ready to live from a deeper place. And now it's up to you to decide. Will you answer this call? Will you allow this seed to germinate in the soil of your consciousness? Or will you let this moment pass? The question is, how much longer will you postpone the encounter with who you truly are? The question is, when will you finally allow that deeper part of you, that part that always knew the truth, to take the reins of your life? Because it's there, waiting, whispering, calling your name with the voice of silence. And in the end, at the end of all the searching, of all the books, of all the teachings, it's this whisper that matters. It's this voiceless voice that will guide you back home, to that place within you that was never touched by suffering, to that peace that was never disturbed by the storm, to that joy that never depended on external reasons to exist. This is the unspoken prayer, and it's not hidden because it's concealed. It's hidden because it's too obvious to be seen. It is you. It always was you. It always will be you. The only difference between who you were yesterday and who you can be today is whether you will allow this truth to become lived instead of merely understood. And if you allow it, if you really allow it, you will discover that there is nothing more natural in the world than being who you truly are. You will discover that there is nothing more simple than living from presence. You will discover that there is nothing more powerful than a life that has become a constant prayer. You will discover that what you spent your whole life searching for was never lost. It was just waiting for you to stop searching and start being.